Hey Akash, how are you?
Hey, Toddy. Hi, David. Hello.
Okay, I have the streaming going and I had a couple of agenda items, mostly kind of concerning James. So, David, I don't know whether James will join today.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me ping him. Pinged or pong, whatever the past tense of ping is. Pang.
Okay, let me know if you see my screen with the agenda.
I see your screen.
Okay, now I lost the other screen. Oh, I guess actually disappears. Zoom always confuses me, to be fair. Okay. Yeah, so I had the tough metadata, the tax signing discussion, and attestation discussion. So I I don't know whether we have enough quorum for that. Maybe we can wait a couple more minutes and see whether other folks will join. But I don't know, David, if you have any thoughts about those topics, we can chat briefly. Akash, you too.
Yeah, there were a few items from the Monday meeting that seemed to desire some feedback from Docker, as I recall reading through the notes. So
uh, okay, I had here is the agenda from Monday. So there was governance issues, OCI 1.1 support, some certificate stuff. And I also only attended half of the Monday meeting, so I had to drop off for the second half. So
yeah,
yeah, though this was I think this do you mean this one, the Justin replacing Justin with James? That
well, yeah,
or
it says Vanny or Toddy can help discuss with David and James this issue if they join on Thursday. So I don't know what about that issue. I mean, we've already talked about this and it seemed like it was a non-starter, so but I don't really know. And then the next issue about Notary, I just wanted to update everyone that Johnny will be back from leave week after next. So
Mhm.
um we're kind of waiting. We at Docker are waiting for Johnny to get back to comment on that. So it'll be about 2 weeks before we
Mhm.
reply on that.
Okay.
But we will reply. But yeah, we're just waiting for Johnny to get back. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you have any questions about the Justin, I mean, Justin thing seems like it's done. That was merged and he was removed. So I don't know what the current thinking is on James. It seems like initially, the
I
time was no, and then someone said, somebody on Docker should be on there, and yeah,
Yeah, Nias mentioned that somebody will be there, but I have not heard from Nias for a while. And like looking at the timelines, in 2 months, I will rebring that issue and say, look, it's been already 6 months, and James has been participating in the community. I will go ahead and I don't know what is you're actually thinking that I will propose both of you in 2 months and say, can we just add you guys there? Because you've been kind of actively participating for like starting January, so it will be 6 months end of June.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Again, we're we're flexible on that. Happy to do what we can, and
Mm.
you know, if it,
I yeah, yeah, let's do that. It seems that like I don't think that we'll be able to make any progress, but I I really want to take a closer look at our governance and really clarify those things. But it seems right now the governance documents are not very clear on what is the process, like how do we select maintainers, whether it's organizational maintainers or it's been, in my opinion, a little bit ad hoc. And when you have like different people on different opinions, it's really hard to get those
yeah,
moved forward. Yeah. So maybe
yeah,
we need to
everybody
go
just
and
sort of
agree.
says their
Yeah.
opinion. There's conflicting, and then it just sort of sits there. There's got to be some way to kind of drive it.
Yeah. And if we have it written in the, let's say the governance document, you can go and refer to that. I remember we had even that discussion that in the governance document was written super majority and pointed to a Wikipedia article, and the Wikipedia article defines supermajority as three different things. So, so we were not clear which one is meant. And um, yeah, but I think we'll get that. Like my opinion is like let's leave it sit for another 2 months, and then we have recourse for that, and we can bring it end of June. That is what my thinking is right now. Um, Anything else, David, you have on your mind or?
Not on those two. No, that's it. I don't know if you want to see if
Yeah,
James will come back to me.
I'm more interested in kind of these other topics that I had on the agenda, which are more interesting to discuss than the governance part, to be fair. Like attestations, tax signing, tough metadata. I know that Marina actually pinged me and James last week when I was on vacation, and she's also interested from the tough community to make progress on that. So I really want to talk with James, and I'll ping him on Slack. It seems that he won't join, but I'll ping him so we can start making progress on this thing. But I don't know whether you have any thoughts about, let's say, the tax signing or the attestation discussions. And I know you guys been looking at uh, some of those on your side. I don't know how much you are involved, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
would be
pretty involved.
interested.
I mean, James and I are aligned on these things. So, I mean, both being in the same team and everything. So,
Mhm.
um, I don't know if there's specific questions or stuff you wanted to address there.
Uh, for attestation specifically, um, what I would like to hear what is kind of your thinking. How do you want to add attestations to, let's say, um, notation, or what is your expectation? Like that's kind of maybe a question.
Yeah, I mean, what we see essentially is two separate flows for the attestations for OCI type artifacts, OCI images. Um, there's essentially attestations that one adds during creation, and then there's ones and those are added by the owner, the creator, the maintainer of the artifact. And then there are others that could be added, at later points. And those could be done by consumers or third party verifiers of one sort or another that are adding an attestation. And you know, ultimately for the first flow, kind of the way that build kit does it is preferable from our perspective. Um, and that's because there's an easy signal when those things when the owner and maintainer of those images get updated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is, the SHA of that index image index gets updated. The checksum of that image index gets updated, and so you do it whenever you're doing a head. You can say, "Oh yeah, this something has changed about this tag that I'm interested in. I should pull it and figure out which parts have changed, and if any of the parts that I'm interested in have changed, then I should, you know, act appropriately." And since all those things are done by the owner of the image, then it makes sense to kind of contain that in the in image index because that's essentially an envelope for that sort of information. And then for kind of consumer and third party type attestations, realistically, the subject refers solution is more viable, um, and better fits that flow. Um, it does introduce an additional burden on the consumer, where now you're hitting an API endpoint to get the list of refers, and then you'd have to check those refers, and so it's a bit more burdensome, but
Mm-hmm.
given the ownership model and OCI and stuff like that, there's really not a way around that. So um, I mean, I don't know if that's specifically what you're asking about, but that's kind of our thinking. And I think as you know, we're kind of internally figuring out how to prioritize refers support in Hub
Yeah,
because
yeah. Mhm. So talking about the first one, like attestation at creation, are you so first of all, are you looking at, let's say, in total attestations or some other types of attestation?
yeah, in general, we're only looking at in total right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a type of attestation that we need that isn't within that specification, then yeah, we're looking to extend that specification.
Mm-hmm. And the way I understand is like you will create just another blob that will have the attestation and just link this blob from the manifest, or is it another approach that you're thinking of?
Well, right now, what Build Kit does to add these attestations is, um, essentially they appear they are layers in an image,
Mm-hmm.
and that image is appears as an image in the image index object. So the fat manifest or the manifest list
Mm-hmm.
object, that's common for multi-architecture images. Um, and so, it essentially refers to the image, the platform specific image to which those attestations attest. So, um, so typically within these image indices, there are 2n images manifests in the manifest array in those
Mm-hmm.
in those
Do you
uh,
do you have anything published right now on Docker Hub that has these attestations, or is it still kind of
Oh yeah, tons.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this like look at Rabbit MQ. These aren't signed yet,
Hmm.
but they are. Um, I'll just uh, I'll just add a link here. Well, I here. Uh, maybe.
One of the things, because in general, one of the scenarios that we are targeting is like before you even pull anything for the from the image, we would like to go and evaluate the attestation. So right now I am trying to think if I want to do that, let's say, how how can I figure out which to pull the right attestation to evaluate? Like, let's say if I want to go and say before I pull the image, I would like to check the provenance attestation, whether it's a salsa provenance or we have like other like notion of provenance, what we think about, how we can, what are the steps that I need to take in order to pull the provenance attestation and be able to evaluate or kind of this before I even go and pull any other part of the image.
Right. Well, yeah. It depends on what you call any other part of the image, but if you, I've added that link to the notes there of that
Mm-hmm.
example. I want to open up that Rabbit MQ image and we can kind of walk through that and I can show you
Oh,
what we're
yeah.
thinking.
Um, I will open this.
So you can see the second element of that manifest array is a, you know, image manifest reference that has a platform with an unknown architecture and unknown OS. And then within the annotations, there's that reference.digest that refers to, EF6A60, which is
Mm-hmm.
that first image, the first entry in the manifest array. So
Mm-hmm.
that checksum is the same as the checksum for the AMD 64 Linux image
Yeah.
that is the first element of that array. So this and its reference type is an attestation manifest. And so if you click
Mm-hmm.
on the digest of that, so that's telling you that the attestations in this
Mm-hmm.
image are referring to that AMD 64 Linux image. And so each
Mm-hmm.
layer in this image is a different attestation. I mean, technically it's a statement because they're not signed, but when
Yeah.
they're signed, they'll be attestations. And so there are four different SBOM, those are the SPDX document entries, and one provenance. That's the last salsa provenance one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just so happens that this image has four stages. This build has four
Uh-huh.
stages. You build, think with RabbitMQ, you're building OpenSSL, then you're building Erlang, then you're building RabbitMQ, and then you actually have the final image. And so those are the four different stages of the build, and that's why there's four different SBOMs, one for each stage. Um, and if you were to add other attestations, statements, in total statements during the build, that they would appear as additional layers within uh,
Mm-hmm.
this image, which refers to the AMD 64 image.
Okay. I get it. And so you create a new SBOM for each stage of the build. Uh,
Yeah.
that means like,
Well, yeah, a different S. We produce an SBOM for each stage of the build because they're
mhm.
different packages are installed in different images. Yeah, these are the Image Explorer won't show these to you because they're too big.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Got it. Okay. And you have the same thing also for the ARM image and
All of them. Yeah. So
ARM64. Yeah, got
there's
it.
two N entries where N is the number of architecture OS types.
Hmm.
So all the unknown ones have a this reference.digest that points to the one that they are modifying, that they're attesting to, I should say.
Okay, I understand. And in the future, the expectation is that each one of those will also be signed. And so, what can we
We're
control?
actually not settled on this, actually, like what to do about that. Like
Uh-huh.
whether, because when you sign these using an in toto, a DSSE envelope, you're essentially obfuscating the payload of what you're signing. And so these very big SBOM attestations, and for the full provenance attestation is pretty big too.
Hmm.
DSSE envelope requires that you provide that payload as a base 64 encoded string.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of like you're taking this thing that's, I don't know, 10 megabytes, and then you're base 64 encoding it, so now it's 22 megabytes.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's kind of we're not exactly sure like how. That's one of the things that we're talking to in Toto about is, um do we have to do that? Can we just like can we keep these things as they are and then just add, so that this would be like a 2n array of layers, and so you have the attestation and then you're essentially signing like an OCI descriptor for that
That was my question. Yeah,
entry.
because this is for each one of those, you also have a digest, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
That's right there. You have a digest, and so you could just, in theory, use the content addressable nature of the OCI registry
yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
just sign the OCI descriptor instead of the 20. I mean, ultimately you're just signing the checksum of it, right? But with
Yes.
the DSSE envelope, you're encoding the whole payload as base 64. And so like what do we do there? Do we like triple the size of these things by adding, okay, there's the SBOM and here's the sign, the DSSE signed signature for that, with that SBOM encoded base 64 as a separate layer, or do we remove the original one and replace it with the DSSE envelope representation of it? In which case, you're sort of like making it harder for people to access those things. And
Hmm.
you're, to your earlier point, you're making them download it before they verify it. Like that's one of the
Hmm.
drawbacks of the DSSE envelope, where you have the payload in the envelope. If you're representing that as a layer, people have to download that whole layer before they can verify it. Um, which, and I guess technically is true anyway. You're gonna have to download the thing to perform the checksum so that you can verify the signature anyway. But and
Yeah.
OCI has, tells you the size, so you can't like denial of service people and stuff like through that mechanism, but it's still, is it sort of, does it kind of does it make it easier if we can just sort of keep these representation as it is, so the tools that have been built to use these statements directly can still exist, but we can kind of verify their contents in a separate way.
Yeah, the integrity of it. I am wondering, um maybe one more question. So if you are to have like these detached signatures, so let's say if you sign only the descriptor, so
Right.
do you expect to have another entry here in this manifest that says well, now I have a media type signature that points to this layer, or how do you imagine this?
That's currently how we would do it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
our sort of internal tool to create these signatures basically operates in one of three ways. And one is just doing, replacing it, encoding the whole thing as the payload of a DSSE.
Mm-hmm,
The other is um, encoding the whole thing as a DSSE and adding a new layer. So you have it both sort of original and as DSSE. And then the third way is the kind of just signing the OCI descriptor.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In which case the original is still there and it adds a new layer into this layers array. That is the
So
DSSE envelope for the that signs the OCI descriptor.
my thinking right now is, can we prototype also signing with notary project signatures in most probably the third way that you described? Because I think that will be what will be maybe interesting for us. And how can we incorporate that into the build kit? Because I guess the tool that you have right now works with build kit, right? The internal tool that you use for
Well, I
signing.
mean, the tool basically takes an OCI artifact and signs it. So we just sort of like use, so build kit, like we will produce this and then,
Mm-hmm.
and we just write it as an OCI tar. And then the tool just kind of unpacks that tar and signs it
But
and
does the
repackages it.
and repackages it? But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to go and actually change all these the manifest, the index manifest, and this index manifest, because and that is done after the, because build kit generates this manifest, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you just, the tool that you have, you say that it's not integrated with build kit. It does,
Well,
after build kit generates this, the tool takes all these manifests, does all the signing stuff, and rebuilds the manifests.
yeah, I mean, to be clear,
Mm-hmm.
the integration with BuildKit is a future work, right? So now it just takes the output of BuildKit. BuildKit can just write it like, and you know,
OCI,
yeah,
yeah,
any of a
layout.
number of different output formats. And so it takes the OCI tar and operates on that.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, what we'd like is to have a uh, signing interface within BuildKit that
Mm-hmm.
Notary cosign can implement
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that BuildKit has an SBOM generator interface, like
Mm-hmm.
that, it has its own built-in SBOM generator, but you can replace that with any SBOM generator you want that implements that interface, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So an OCI artifact that implements that interface, build can essentially execute that. And so ideally, we'd like to define some signature technology agnostic interface within BuildKit, uh, so that things can be signed as part of the build. Um, and maybe even ideally is we're still, I mean, to be transparent, we're still debating whether that would introduce too much complexity and kind of overloading of the intent of build kit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's better to just keep those concerns separate and to have them be different tools the way they are now. Because
Mm-hmm.
it gets tricky, sort of like, if you think about CI/CD and Docker and all that kind of stuff, when you're building these things, it gets tricky to sort of like share credentials securely so that you can sign,
Yeah.
without a lot of friction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're still kind of bandying about, and as I think as we get sort of closer to doing something about that, we'll definitely be talking about it in venues like this.
Hmm. What is your expectation? When do you guys think that will be closer to that?
I would say probably like Q3 of this year to start talking about it and
Hmm.
implement closer to Q4 timeframe. We have
Got it.
a lot of work to do between now and then on just kind of getting stuff where we want.
Hmm. Okay, that actually is good information that uh, at least we can plan for that. I know that we have some releases on Notary project coming in Q2, so and eventually we can plan for Q3 kind of to work on really that part of the attestation. And of course the other thing which is the detached one. So I think that's more trivial because that's already supported by notation. But this integration with build kit or what actually we do was building this initial or the attestation added at creation and how we can sign them. That will be the more interesting challenge to work on. Cool.
Yeah,
That's the yeah. Thanks for explaining this. Very helpful.
sure.
Akash, do you have any questions or?
Nope, just listening in and wasn't aware of how the build kit integration works. So thanks for explaining.
Sure.
And coming back to the tough metadata, I don't know whether you or James had any chance to look at this. I know that James said that he needs to pick up his document, but um, do you have any details around that, David?
I'll read through it. I haven't read it yet, so I somehow missed this somewhere. So I'll read
Oh,
through it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me know what you're thinking. We're having a lot of conversation inside Microsoft about um, tax streams, about tax history, and how do we keep track of the tax history. And I'll be curious, like, to have discussions either in this forum or outside this forum to discuss what your thinking is about that. Um, the reason being is maybe to just explain kind of what we're trying to solve. So uh, when you go and actually have a certain repository in the registry, right? So you have different tags, especially the rolling tags, as we call it, which take, for example, Python 3.10, or something like this.
Yeah.
Right now, the upstream community can go and actually update this tag, but we have a tool called Copacetic that can go and actually do patches between releases of Python 3.10 upstream, which means that these two eventually can override the 3.10 tag between the two releases from upstream. And one of the things that we would like to keep track is really the history and also who was the actor that created the new digest and overrode the tag. We have also customers really saying, I don't want like specific actors to override these tags and so on, kind of restricting it in the registry. As well as having the capability to say, okay, I want to, when I create a particular tag, I want to actually sign it and say that this image can be used only, or this digest can be used only with this tag. So we have this kind of requirement for customer and they don't want to actually change it. So those are kind of the scenarios that we've been trying to solve. And I'll be curious to hear what is your guys is thinking about the two parts. One is the tag history, which is, I see it also related to the TUF metadata and how do we store the TUF metadata. And also the tag signing. How do you, let's say, when you create a image and you say, okay, this image is created with like at the time of creation had this tag, how can I ensure that somebody cannot represent this image as some other tag later on?
Right. So that, I mean, yeah, so kind of getting into like tough type concerns with
Yeah,
downgrade attacks and imposters and
yeah.
um yeah. And you envision or imagine this sort of information and metadata being available through OCI APIs?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
Either OCI APIs or as like some specific artifact in the repository that
Ugh.
is well known.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd
And
be
if this artifact is either missing or inconsistent, then the client can make some decision and say, hey, you're trying to actually trick me to do something else that I do not expect.
yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, this is something like for Docker official images that we have available, through Git, right? So not exactly super accessible through Hub,
Mm-hmm.
Docker
Yeah.
Hub. But it's available in GitHub. Um, Got to remember, I'm not talking to just Docker people, so Hub is a bit ambiguous. But yeah, so yeah, sort of incorporating that um into OCI land could be very interesting and powerful. And I think maybe your intuition around some well-known artifact or attestation specifically could be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. We've been looking at the salsa provenance summary
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
attestation, which has some of these properties that you're after.
But the salsa provenance is just for a single image, it doesn't have the history, right? Because
Yeah,
salsa is
but
like,
the
yeah,
subject, it doesn't have the history, no, but the subject does, essentially is an array where you can essentially say, this image with this shot, kind of, so you can list all the, at least at the time of creation, what were all the names that this image was known
yeah,
by.
yeah.
Yeah, but to get that longitudinally, then, um, yeah, you could think of perhaps some other way to do that, either through some historical API or, um, yeah, through some other similar type of image or
Mm-hmm.
attestation.
Artifact, yeah. Okay. Um, let's talk more about that, and I'll ping James on Slack, kind of just moving forward with the tough discussion, so we can eventually get something going in the next couple of months as ideas and eventually
Yeah,
implementation.
we actually have an offsite next week, so we probably won't be at this meeting next week. But like I said, in 2 weeks, Johnny will be back, and so maybe we can plan on talking about it then.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for all the information. It's very valuable for me at least. I don't have anything else, so I can give the remaining 15 minutes back if you guys don't have any other topics you want to talk about.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Thank you. Have a nice day, and I'll see you so in 2 weeks, David. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
See
Have
y'all.
fun.